Now, obviously, that's, a ridiculous statement. It's obviously, a parody of what the mainstream media says, and but I do concede that I'd said something to that effect, but not on that day. You know, this implies, that they were accruing statements over time. They were saying that all these statements came from that specific day, but they didn't. They came from different times, because I said different things at different times, and they're all trying to claim that all these different things were said on that same day. Sorry, but that's dishonest. Now, why would they do this? Because they're trying to get rid of me. That's why. I mean, the arrest wouldn't have even occurred if it weren't for this hateful stuff. I mean, the detective who interviewed me, she tried to say, "Oh no, the police have been lenient with you up until this point, letting you get away with this, but then we had to get you." But that's irrelevant. It's illogical, because it just shows that up until now they didn't have any of this hateful shit. I mean, just think about it. Why do you think I've been doing this for 5 whole months so far, and they haven't arrested me? I mean, come on, if I'm saying all this hateful stuff all the time, how come they haven't arrested me up until this point? Well, up until this point, they didn't have a compendium of all this hateful rhetoric, and they weren't able to get an arrest up until now. I mean, they tried. I mean, the detective tried to justify it by saying, "Oh, we got multiple statements from multiple different people who are saying more or less the same thing. How do you explain that?" Well, first of all, that's a logical fallacy. That's called the argument from ignorance. Second, it's an attempt to shift the burden of proof onto me. Here's the thing: the burden of proof is on them to prove my guilt. The burden of proof is not on me to prove my innocence. I mean, the whole precept of the criminal justice system is supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But with this example, with this scenario, it was the opposite. I was guilty until I proved my innocence. That, I feel, is a miscarriage of justice. But yeah, that's then again, logical fallacies. That's mainly what they rely on, really. I mean, just think like there was a few appeals to ridicule that the first officer tried to do when I wasn't following along with their script. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, the very basis of these allegations are false to begin with. I mean, so. And another thing that was implied during the interview, this is a classic, by the way, that after me explaining my worldview and explaining how I'm a peaceful and respectful individual, and I try and help people to encourage people to feel better about themselves, blah 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 blah. She tried to in respect of all the allegations, she tried to imply, oh, that just might all these allegations, these just might be your attitude when you're not filming yourself. Really? Do you really think it's just so dishonest and so biased? I mean, wasn't the detective supposed to be neutral in the matter, because she was supposed to be investigating it? How can you properly investigate something while having either a bias towards one side of it, or have any vested interest on either side? You can't. That's not an objective way to investigate a matter. But why is she creating explanations for how the allegations could still be true? I mean, essentially she was inferring that I was either dishonest or that I was mentally ill. That was essentially the inference. Because, I mean, while I don't appreciate this attempted inference, I realise that it's the only choice they had open to them. Because they either imply dishonesty, or that I'm mentally ill, or the only alternative is to entertain the thought that the allegations were false to begin with. I mean, they can't stand to do that. It's too much hassle. I mean, I even told her that I've around 2 hours of raw footage that I can submit if needed to basically explain, exactly what I do on the megaphone, and that's when she said, oh no, these allegations could be, when you're not recording yourself. But she brushed it off, because it's obvious that it makes the whole matter easier to take these false allegations with blind faith and reject belligerently any of my explanations, even when it means having to infer mental illness on my part just to defend the allegations. Well, sorry, that's not right. Okay, that's not right. I mean, because anyone who's familiar with my stuff will know that the things I'm supposed to have said does not fit with any of the things that I purport in my worldview. When I thought about it again, these allegations, I realised something. Let's take the Bin Laden allegation, for example. You guys do realise that if I say Bin Laden was just doing a job, you do realise that that implies that I believe that Bin Laden was responsible for 9/11. Do I believe that? No, I don't believe that Bin Laden had anything to do with 9/11. So, yeah, it doesn't fit, does it? I don't buy that, because thus makes that statement completely erroneous. Also, my supposed words that cancer patients might as well wait to die, well, that is patently absurd on 2 different levels. Okay, one, first off, because it makes no sense for someone like me, considering my medical history, to say something like that, and 2, it's outright absurd, because there is hope for cancer patients. Have any of you heard of anti-neoplastin therapy? Google it. Overall, this all amounted to this pretty little document here. It was a letter that they gave me when they released me. I'll read it out to you. Description: harassment. An allegation of harassment has been made against you. Details of alleged conduct. Specific actions that are cause for complaint. Using a loudspeaker set at a high volume to voice personal opinions in Maidstone town centre, which members of the public are finding offensive and is causing them harassment, alarm and distress. Harassment is a criminal offence under the Protection from Harassment Act 1997. A person must not pursue a course of conduct which amounts to harassment of another and which he or she knows or ought to know amounts to harassment of the other. Here's the good bit. Right. Kent Police makes no comment as to the truth or otherwise of these allegations at this stage. This information is being brought... yeah, they can't comment whether the allegations are true or not. Does that mean they're basically saying, we don't consider ourselves responsible, these allegations have been made, we can't say whether they're true or not? This information is being brought to your attention in the spirit of crime prevention and to make clear to you that this allegation has been made. It is important that you understand that should you commit any act or acts either directly or indirectly that amount to harassment, you may be liable to arrest. A copy of this notice can be produced if necessary in any subsequent criminal proceedings against you to demonstrate that you are aware of this allegation. A copy of this notice will be retained by the police in accordance with national guidance on the management of police information. This letter is not a court order and is information/evidential purposes only. Now, essentially a load of hot air, basically, wag our finger at you, don't do this again, sort of thing. But now, with that letter, which apparently now denotes that I have a harassment warning against me, even though they can't prove that I have directly targeted anyone and harassed anyone, which is interesting, which I haven't. But the police need to. They need to traverse that middle line. They need to create a result for the businesses of Maidstone by means of trying to shut me up. Now, this shows that the police are actually beholden to protecting business and the status quo, not upholding human rights. Specifically, in this case, the right to freedom of expression, which is detailed in Article 10 of the Human Rights Act 1998, which they are sworn by oath to uphold, which they did not do here. But I'll leave it up to you guys to figure out whether protecting business is included in the UK police oath. My activism, essentially, is about expressing information and insights with the view of, of allowing people and encouraging people to feel better about themselves, and giving them hope for the future in the face of all these problems that we see in society, but also to receive information as well through interacting with people who approach me and learning from them as we share information. That's not ultimately good for business, especially jewelers, right? But essentially they want to shut me up and have something against me without it having to go to court. Because guess what will happen if it goes to court? My accusers will be forced to testify under oath to the Crown Prosecution Service, and they will have to back up this bullshit that they've said. There's a word for that. It's called perjury. This is the entire reason why the police haven't arrested me up until now, because they realised that I'm not doing anything wrong, and they had to make up some hateful things to get the cuffs on me. And this kind of links in with something else that I was warned about. I was given some information by a former Maidstone Borough councillor who I've met and spoken to at length, and this former councillor, when I wasn't megaphoning at the top of Fremlin Walk, they asked one of the Fremlin Walk security guards, where's that nice young man who speaks on a megaphone and gives out free hugs? To which the response was, "Oh, him. We're trying to get rid of him. We're going to get rid of him." Now, think about it. Think about that very statement. I mean, at the time I took it with a bit of pinch of salt, but considering what has happened, that they mounted this compendium of bullshit to try and hang me on, and seal the deal, they send PC Jackson to arrest me. Now, by the way, PC Jackson is an officer who apparently has a reputation for being overly aggressive, and apparently, I don't know whether this is true, but apparently this behaviour has earned him the nickname the Terminator. I don't know whether this is true. This is just something I've been told, so I'm just throwing it out there. But it does make sense that there might be a grain of truth in there, that they're trying to get rid of me. They make up this false statements, and then they send an aggressive police officer to arrest me. I mean, how perfect is that picture? I mean, considering that apparently me getting out my camcorder was reason for them to engage a forced arrest. Now, and PC Jackson made a point of telling me that he'd switched my camcorder off while they were cuffing me. Make of make of that what you will, guys, because this all comes together and this all makes sense. I mean, if you work in a jeweller's, and if you're selling or any shop, if you're selling materialistic shit, and an activist is out on the street exercising his freedom of expression and telling people that they are beautiful just as they are and they don't need necessarily material possessions to make them happy, then you're going to want to do something about it. Essentially, this whole thing was essentially a lobbying exercise. You know, where certain institutions, they lobby to the government for protection of their industry and try to criminalise behaviour that isn't actually doing anything wrong, but the very, the very act itself threatens their profits, so they lobby to the government for protection. This is essentially more or less the same sort of scenario. I mean, the businesses don't want people thinking for themselves and thus not being a slave to materialism. So we got to crack down on anything and anyone that tries to inspire freedom. I mean, never mind that he's actually not doing anything wrong and expressing his right to freedom of expression. We want to keep lining our pockets. So let's make some shit up to shut him up. And the police, it's unfortunate to say, the police bought it, hook, line and sinker. That's also why they went straight in with the arrest, virtually, because they had received all these hateful things and they can't afford to allow me to protect or defend myself. I mean, that's why the police have always walked away, because I've opened up a dialogue with them and shown them and proved to them that I'm not doing anything wrong, and so they have to walk away without any action against me whatsoever. That's why, But if they make up lots of hateful shit and then go, right, we need who's our most direct and forceful officer that's available today? Right, PC Jackson. Right, go get him. I mean, I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but I'm saying it's damn well likely. But as a result, I spent around about 8 hours at the police station, 7 of those hours in a cell, and come out with this harassment warning. But it concerns me how the police took these allegations on blind faith and tried to create reasons why I was in the wrong, even if that meant using logical fallacies nearly every step of the way. I mean, my freedom of speech was not upheld, because it was easier to cling to false allegations, and they lacked the ability or the inclination to verify and prove these allegations. They just wanted to shut me up, essentially. I mean, at first in the interview, I was actually quite shocked at some of the implications of these accusations. I kept thinking to myself, well, is it a case of I've thought I've said something but said something else, or is it a case of them hearing a couple of words and then hearing what they want to hear? I didn't really want to think to myself that people would actively make shit up to shut me up. I mean, that comes part and parcel with my goodwill towards humanity. I don't outright think that people are willing to I mean, what's the offence if you lie to a police officer in giving evidence? Is it attempting to pervert the course of justice? Is that? I don't know whether that is the one. Maybe you guys can correct me on that. But no, I didn't think that people would do that. I thought people were good people. I didn't think they would do this. I mean, but I thought the cognitive dissonance. At different points in the interview, I kept thinking the cognitive dissonance was on my part. But it just shows that that I'm having this much of an impact to cause people who work in businesses and supposedly members of the public to make stuff up about me just so the police can get the cuffs on me. I mean, it didn't completely strike me that they would collude to get rid of me by means of lying to the police. I mean, you see. But yeah, I mean, like I said, that's what happens when you think well of people. You get screwed over. Now, I mean, granted, one of the statements that I would concede to saying something to the effect of being that there are institutions that profit from cancer. Now, I concede that in the past, on the megaphone, I have said something to that effect. But it is true though. I mean, the detective said, yeah, you know, it might be true, but that doesn't matter, you know. I mean, seriously. I mean, if you take into consideration the fallacious accusation that I had said that cancer patients might as well wait to die, due to the existence of cancer cures, they are of course held back because cancer is profitable. So right there, you know, that's another thing that proves why I wouldn't say that cancer cures might as well wait to die, because I know of different cancer cures that can help people. But yeah, if using the word cancer is breach of Section 5, then how come we're not taking Macmillan Cancer Care to prison for plastering cancer up on billboards? We're not. But it's okay somehow to tell an activist to shut up and try and get an activist arrested for using the word cancer. It's ridiculous. I mean, it was a trampling of freedom of expression. You know, because what is implied by the right of freedom of expression? What is implied? Well, it boils down to a respectful sharing of views and information, even if you don't care for or agree with it. Because even if you don't care for it or agree with it, you still uphold my right to say it. You know, and that's why this whole situation was a trampling of freedom of expression, because I wasn't allowed to defend myself either on the street or, you know, or properly in interview, because they kept trying to generate these reasons for why I'm being dishonest. It's ridiculous. I mean, there's no law or statute that gives us a right to be offended. We have a right to freedom of expression, and I'm always diligent and respectful at all times. It's just they conveniently ignore that and bring in some bullshit to try and hang me on. But and I'll tell you what, here's an interesting thing. There's one of the things that the custody officer said just before I was being released, when he said, tell you what, try and do what you're doing in Tunbridge Wells, you won't last 5 minutes. Can't you see how much of an admission of guilt that is on their part? That this whole thing was basically a circus to trample on my freedom of expression? I mean, make of that statement what you will, guys, but I see that as an admission of what they were doing. I mean, I'll tell you what, here's a message to the Kent Police and my accusers. You will not stop me being an activist. I will be an activist in whatever form I possibly can. I will show you that I'm an altruistic, caring, compassionate and progressive human being. I will show you that these allegations are completely false by means of this video, and also you know, by means of any maybe any news articles that might come out in the future about this. But yeah, this is a case of you trying to withhold my freedom of expression, and I'm basically telling you that I have committed my life to trying to make this world a better place. I will not let you stop me, okay? The allegations that you've made against me, you know they are false. I know they are false. So you better hope that I don't get arrested again and have to have this brought through court, because you will have to be forced to commit perjury. Either that, or you will have to withdraw your statements because you don't want to, you know, commit a criminal offence yourself, which would make you a complete hypocrite. But you know, but yeah, basically, you know, I haven't been discouraged at all from doing what I'm doing. I may change my tactics. I may, you know, this has inspired me to think of loads and loads of different ideas of like little things that I can do to make people think. But I'll tell you what, this is also a message to any other activists in and around the Maidstone area who are thinking of becoming active in social change. Be careful, guys. Back yourselves up as much as you can. You know, make sure you record everything and make sure it's corroborated with any see if you can get witnesses as well. This is what I'm going to think about doing, trying to get witnesses to make sure that that what I'm saying on the megaphone is completely lawful, and thus I can also prove that to the authorities when they say, oh, they've told us that you're saying this, or they've told us that you're saying that. No, sorry. Watch the CCTV footage. Even though the CCTV footage doesn't have audio capabilities, match that up with the audio recording that I've been taking the whole time. Match that up, and then try and say that I've said the things that they've said that I've said. You know, but yeah, I mean, I would probably advise against megaphoning on behalf of anyone else if you're starting out, because when I first started out, I wasn't completely privy to the tactics that the authorities would use and the tactics that different members of the public would try. So you know, you need to do a lot of research to do this sort of thing, to protect yourself against the teeth of the establishment. You know. But yeah, the advice I would give to any activist is just be careful. Okay, just be careful. I mean, the status quo has teeth, and it will bite back if it can, and it will. So you know, that's basically that. Not going to make this video extremely long, but because I've prattled on for long enough. So hope you guys take care, and I'll see you all soon. Namaste.